Experience Live. Good to see you guys. How's everybody? Welcome. Also want to welcome those of you watching at church online or via video at one of our West Texas campuses. Want you to know we're so glad you're joining with us today as well. Before we get into the message today, a couple of just things I wanted to talk to you about. You saw some of them in the announcements video, but a couple things coming up that I want to draw your attention to that are really, really important. Number one is on January 26th, 6:30 p.m. at our downtown campus, we're starting Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Now, just curious at all of our campuses, how many of you guys have either read one of his books or been through the class or something like that, the Dave Ramsey stuff? All right, very good. If you've not been through the class, I would encourage you, strongly encourage you to go, whether you're in debt and want to get out of debt, he talks about that, or you're already out of debt and trying to figure out what to do next with savings and retirement and kids' college education, paying off your home, all those things. They talk about them in the class. You should definitely go. Another reason to go is John Bradshaw is our CFO here at the church, and he's one of our pastors as well, and he's kind of facilitating it. This guy's a CPA, all right, which is kind of cool to have on church staff, certified public accountant. He's teaching it. If I could take it again, I'd want to take it with him. So 26th, 6:30 p.m., downtown campus. I would go if I was you, and you need to sign up first in the back. You can do that at all of our campuses. So Financial Peace is coming up. Also, Reveal. Sarah had mentioned that in the video. Reveal is a spiritual growth survey. And next weekend, we're going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, to fill it out for us. It's online. So we'll send you a link through Facebook or send you an email or whatever, and you can fill this out. And we want to kind of know how we're doing as a church, because we care a lot about helping people grow spiritually. And so we're trying to find some ways to measure that. So we'll encourage you to take the survey, completely anonymous, answer these questions, and then we'll probably take it again in a couple of years and just see how we're doing. So that's coming up as well. That'll be next weekend. And then this is really the coolest. Next weekend, we are officially launching, January 22nd, 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning, our Amarillo campus. How cool is that? Amarillo, coming at you from a basketball gym, basically, in a Christian school. So we've got some pictures of some of their rehearsal gatherings. Let me show you some of these pictures so you can kind of see what's been going on. So this is the basketball gym. It definitely looks like our Southwest campus when you're in there. It looks like a sportsplex. There are the chairs and the screen, all the sound equipment where people are going to meet. Next picture. This is from the front of the stage where the band would be standing looking toward the back. You've got our singers there in the back. Okay, next picture. And then this is kind of a shot of them rehearsing from the back. Isn't that cool? Isn't that awesome? We're totally pumped about what the Lord's going to do in Amarillo, because the vision really, just so you know, in case you hadn't heard, from the beginning hasn't just been for Lubbock, helping people in Lubbock experience all God has for them in this life, but also like the West Texas region and ultimately the world. And so we've been dreaming of planning 10 campuses, 10 churches in 10 years. We've got the Southwest campus now, downtown campus, and fixing to have our third campus in Amarillo. And I'm just telling you, we are so excited about it. It's so awesome. And so I want you to pray with us for them. Chris Baggett, he's on our staff. He's going to be the campus pastor in Amarillo. Danielle Burgett, she's going to be the worship leader. She's led some with Brandon here at our Southwest campus. Craig Alexander, the campus administrator. So we'll be praying for them, and you'll probably hear me welcome them next weekend via video. So it's going to be great. We're excited about that. Next weekend, we're starting a new series called I Experience that will be for a couple of weekends that you'll want to be here for. But this weekend, just wanted to talk to you about a principle that I've heard recently that I think really is life-changing. I think it's a revolutionary principle that's derived from God's Word. And I learned it from this guy named Andy Stanley. And I've talked to you some about him before. He's kind of an indirect mentor of mine. We follow a lot of what they do, but he's a pastor in Atlanta. And so I'm going to get to the principle in a second. But let me set this up. And I think this will be helpful to you today, but this will just be a one-part series here. But let me start by asking you a question. Is anybody here like me in that sometimes you get overwhelmed by all of the needs around you and in this world? Anybody besides me, just raise your hand, all of campus, get overwhelmed sometime by all of the needs. Yeah, all of us. I mean, all you got to do, right, is watch TV for a couple of hours, and you see like commercials of these children, like in other countries, that their rib cage is trying to protrude from their skin, right? Because they're so malnourished and they don't have much to eat. Or you see these families, commercial league families in some other country, and and they have some kind of disease, and there's this pill that can save their lives, but they don't have money for the medicine. If somebody could just send them the medicine, then they could be cured and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to help, but how do I get that? How do I get the pills out? I don't know, what do I do? Or you listen to somebody talk on the news about our economy and the unemployment rate and all the people that are struggling financially. You got needs there. Then you hear about natural disasters, right, happening all over the world, different things going on like that. Then you've got these senseless crimes that are being committed, right? People getting killed, robbed, and people, they're just getting hurt, and you want to help these people, and it can almost be frustrating, right? Because it's so overwhelming. You want to fix it. Like if you're like me, you want to fix it, you want to do something about it, but you're like, I can't fix all that. Like, I can't feed every hungry child in this world. I want to. I don't want there to be kids looking like that anymore. I want to give them the food that I got, but I don't know how to get it to them, and I don't have the money to get it to everybody. And so I care about that, but what do you do? There's all these needs. We're overwhelmed. What do you do? Here's what some people say. Some people say, you just ignore it. You just become so callous to it that you ignore it, and you're like, I can't solve the world's problems, so when that commercial comes on, I'm going to look the other way. When I hear about that need, I'm going to look the other way. I'm just going to ignore it. That's the way some people handle this overwhelming feeling. But here's the problem. We can't do that. You know why? Because we're Christians. We're Christians, those of us that have put our faith in Christ. And we're called to help people when they're in a time of need. So you got all these problems. We want to help. We don't want there to be hungry kids. What do you do? What do you do? If you got a Bible, Galatians chapter 6. Galatians chapter 6. This is going to get happier here in just a second, I promise you. You're like, I feel overwhelmed already. Galatians chapter 6, Paul gives us some insight, I believe, into what we can do, because I think all of us want to do something. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, page 226, if you're one of these. 226, and if you don't have a Bible, or if it's not an easy to understand translation, we give these out. These are New Testaments, easy to understand translation. You can grab one on your way out. All of our campuses, we've got these in the back for you. Galatians 6, 9, and 10, just two verses for you here today where we're going to camp out. Verse 9, Paul says this to the churches in this region called Galatia. He says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. Implication, it's easy to get tired, right? If you're like me, it can be easy to get tired of serving other people, easy to get tired of being so generous, easy to get tired of hearing about all the needs, getting overwhelmed by everything going on in the world. It's so easy to get tired, for sure, of all of it. And he says, but don't get tired of doing what's good at just the right time. We will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Like, don't quit. Don't throw in the towel. God's going to bless you if you don't give up. He's going to reward you if you don't give up. And then watch this, and this is the verse the principle's derived from. Watch this. Therefore, so what should we do? We're overwhelmed. What do we do? Watch. Therefore, whenever we have what's that word? The opportunity. And we don't have an infinite number of opportunities, do we? No, we got 24 hours in a day just like everybody else, all right? Whenever we have the opportunity, we've only got a certain number of opportunities. Whenever we have the opportunity, we should do what? Good. We should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. So he's saying, don't give up. Don't quit doing what is good. Don't quit helping people. You're going to be rewarded as often as you have the opportunity. As often as you have, it could be translated time. As often as you have the time, help somebody. So what do? You're overwhelmed. As often as you have the opportunity, he's saying, do good. As often as you have the opportunity, and it's not endless, as often as you have the opportunity, do good. Can't do something for everybody, but you can do something for somebody. Here's the principle. I would write this down if I was you. I think you might have it memorized by the time we leave, but I think this is a great way to basically restate what he's saying in this verse. You ready? And again, I can't claim this is my own. This is great. This is from Andy Stanley. Here's the principle. Here it is. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Did you get it? Do for one. Do for somebody, some person, group of people. Do for one, as often as you have opportunity. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Would you just say that with me, all of our campuses? Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. You ever thought about that before? Think about this, though. That statement itself, it flies in the face of everything we've been told as children and even things that we tell people as adults. I mean, remember this? Remember this when you were a kid and you were in school and you would go to your teacher and you wanted to go and do something. And so you'd say to your teacher, hey, Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, can I go to the bathroom or the library or whatever? And do you remember your teacher often would respond, hey, here's the thing. You can't, because if I let you go, I have to what? I have to let everybody go. So I can't let you go because I'll have to let everybody go. Or you go to your parent and you say, hey, mama, hey, daddy, can I have one of those? And you remember your parent saying to you, your mom, your dad, hey, here's the thing. I can't give you one because if I gave you one, I'd have to what? Give your brother one, give your sister one. I have to give all these, other people one. Question, where did that come from? And do you even remember what you were thinking? Like when your teacher said, well, if I let you go, I have to let everybody go. I don't know what you were thinking, but here's what I was thinking. No, you don't. You just let me go. And we keep it a secret. I will not tell anybody. And you don't have to tell anybody. I mean, you have to let everybody go. You just let me go. I mean, where did that idea come from, though, that if we do for one, we have to do for everyone? It's affected us, though, as adults, too. Did you know that? Like when it comes to meeting people's needs. Because we think, well, because I can't meet everybody's needs, guess what often happens? We don't meet anybody's needs. Because I can't do this for everybody, I'm not really going to do it for anybody. Because here's what we think. That wouldn't be fair. Right? That's the objection. That wouldn't be fair. Let me tell you something about fair. Don't try to be fair. Never be fair. Life's not fair. Mama wasn't ever fair. God's not fair, thankfully, or else he wouldn't have sent an innocent man to come and die for guilty people, right? So thankfully, he's not fair. I mean, it's not about being fair. Watch this. It's about doing what's right. It's not about being fair. It's about doing what's right, because a lot of the time in our desire to be fair, we don't end up doing anything for anybody because we can't do it for everybody. Why don't you just do it for the one? Why don't you just do it for the one? I mean, where did the idea come from that if you do it for one, you got to do it for everybody? No, you don't, because some people think, well, if I give to this guy, I got to give to all those people. No, you don't. Who said that? Well, if I serve this person, I meet this person's needs, I got to meet all those other people's needs. No, you don't. Who said that? I think a lot of times, though, we become inactive and we don't do much because we're trying to be fair, and since we can't do it for everybody, we don't do it for anybody. That's not right. We shouldn't try to be fair. We should do what's right. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. You can't do it for everyone. We don't have an unlimited amount of time. So why don't you do for one or two or three what you wish you could do for everyone? So here's my question for you today. It's simply this. Who's your one? Who's your one that you can do for what you wish you could do for everyone? My challenge for you, 2012, all of our campuses, is that you'd find your one. My challenge for you this year, you'd find your one or your few or your group or your class, and you would do for them what you wish you could do for everyone. So who's your one? Is it maybe the single mom that you know that's struggling to raise her children alone? She really needs some help. Is it that coworker of yours whose life is a wreck and they really need to experience God's love through you? Is it that homeless person maybe that you've crossed paths with that just needs somebody to walk them through a process of helping them get back up on their feet again? Is it that class at Wheatley or Isles, those two schools that we sponsor, that you could get involved in? Is it that youth life house here at Experience Life, or the kids' small group that meets on Saturday nights or Sunday mornings or Sunday nights that you could get involved in, that you could invest your life in a group of kids or youth you could invest your life in and have the opportunity maybe to lead many of them to Christ because many of them don't know him? Is that your one? Is that your group? Is it that maybe it's that couple that you know that their marriage is falling apart and they need godly counsel? They need somebody to help them. God's positioned you to help them. Maybe it's that child that lives in another country that's starving to death that you can help. You can't help all the starving kids, can you? Can't help every starving kid on the planet. What keeps you from helping, though, the ones you can? One or two or three or four, however many you can. Maybe that's your one. What about that widow you know whose house is falling apart and she needs somebody to come and help her put a roof on her house or do something inside the house. Who's your one? Who's your one? Challenge this year is, why don't you do for them what you wish you could do for everyone? Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Would you say that with me one more time? Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Rather than us going, well, we're going to try to be fair, so since we can't do it for everybody, we're not going to do it for anybody. That's not right, man. Yet too often, I think that's what the church does. They try to be fair rather than doing what's right. 3 tips. You can mark these down. 3 tips with your one. Okay, so you got this one. Hey, 2012, can't meet everybody's needs. I can meet somebody's, though. I can get involved in somebody's life. Here's 3 tips with your one. Number 1 is this. Go deep rather than wide. Go deep rather than wide. Now, going wide with your one is easier, all right? It's like, hey, this guy's poor, give him $10. That guy's poor, give him $10. That lady's poor, give her $10 and $10 and $10. And you're going wide rather than, why not get to know 1 or 2 families that are struggling financially and go deep with them. Figure out what's going on. See how you can really meet their needs and really help them. I don't know if we're really helping people by going wide rather than deep and actually getting involved. You see, this is kind of the approach that we've taken with the schools that we sponsor here in town. Wheatley and Isles, you've heard us talk about these schools before, our Give Big projects and Pack the Pack and all that. We're involved in these schools. But if you think about it, if you think about what we're doing in these schools, think about this. It's not fair, is it? Because we're not doing it for what? All the schools. We're just doing it for Wheatley and Isles. Guess what? We've chosen to be unfair. This is what we have the opportunity to do. And so we're getting involved and going deep with these schools. Can't do it for every school. So what do we do? Because we can't do it for every school, just don't do it for anybody? No, we're going to do it for 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 5 eventually. I don't know. But instead of going wide, doing a little bit for everybody, trying to go deep with a few schools. So we've done all these different projects. We're trying to do even more in these schools. Talking to the principals, figuring out how can we help you? What are your needs? Jill, she's on our staff. She's our local missions director. She's been talking to me about some mentoring programs we could set up in these schools. And we could follow them even to through middle school once they, out of elementary and in middle school. Talked about getting to know the families, finding out if there's needs in the families, not just with school supplies and giving gifts to the kids, but what's going on in the families, getting to know the families in these schools, and just figuring out what else we can do and going deep with these guys rather than going wide. I think that's how you really help people. I think that's how you really help your one. So tip number 1, go deep rather than wide. Go deep rather than wide. Number 2 is this. Go long-term rather than short-term. With your one or your few or your group that you're going deep with, go long-term, like hang out with them over a period of time rather than just going short-term if you really want to help somebody. If you want to help somebody make a difference, go long-term rather than short-term. And I want to show you a video here in a second that I think illustrates how powerful going long-term with somebody can be. I was at a conference a number of years ago. It's called Catalyst Conference, 2009. It's a Christian leaders conference. And one of the groups, nonprofits they were highlighting at this conference is a group called Compassion International. Some of you guys may have heard of them. And basically their mission or their goal is around the world to relieve or to bring children out of poverty in Jesus' name. That's the goal. So basically somebody from another country can sponsor a child that's in a place where they could potentially starve to death. They could give them gifts, help them get an education, make sure they have food, and that kind of thing. So we're at this conference, and this one guy, his name was Jimmy, had been sponsored by somebody, I believe was in Canada. He was in Kenya, his family, and he's going to tell you the story, but they were extremely poor. I believe his sister starved to death. And so he was sponsored for 20 years by this guy in Canada. And so they bring Jimmy to Catalyst, and he's sharing his story about, oh my gosh, our family was a wreck, and then Compassion was in our town, and somebody wanted to sponsor me, and they picked me up, and now I'm here. And so 20 years later, he's in the States, and he's going to Bible school. And he's going to tell you some of these things in a minute, but his accent is so strong, it's kind of hard to understand him all. Well, here's what's crazy. So there's this guy that had been sponsoring him, sending him letters back and forth. And the guy at Catalyst asked him if he's ever met his sponsor. He said, well, no, we've corresponded for 20 years, via, writing letters, but I've never met him. And they bring these guys together. They have him there. And it just shows you, once you see his reaction, just how much power there is in going long-term with somebody that's in need. So take a look at this video from the Catalyst Conference.
Catalyst, join me in showing some big love all the way from Kenya, Jimmy Wambua. Well, Jimmy, we've gotten to spend some time together over the last couple days, and I want you to share a bit of your story with these folks right now.
My name is Jimmy Wambua, and I grew up in a slum in Kenya. When I was 4 years old, my mother fell sick. I never knew my dad. And so she was confined to bed most of the day, and she could not go to the market and find food for us. Faced with starvation, I opted to go to the streets. And many other days I would wake up very early in the morning just to make it in time before the rest of the scavengers come. I roamed the streets hoping that somebody will hold my hand and release me from this situation. When I was 7 years old, I watched as my 10-month-old little sister died of starvation in the lap of my mother. The situation was becoming worse. And my mother, looking at the situation, she decided to donate us to relatives and go look for help. And so I was given up to a sister. And the situation was not any better because I was like the 8th child to join the table. I didn't know what will happen to me next. And that was my early childhood between the ages of 4 and 7.
So Jimmy, your mother goes away just to try to find help. So now your father, your mother not in the picture. Your situation is still very, very dire. But at the age of 8, something dramatic happened in your life. Share that with us.
That was the April of 1990. And my mother came back. And that night she said to me, Jimmy, God loves you so much. I've found some help somewhere. And tonight we shall be traveling 220 miles away from here in the direction of that hope. I remember when she came with new clothes for me, and as she was giving me a bath, she sobbed looking at how the poor health had ravaged my health. And so we got to this train, and for 12 hours we drove in the direction of that hope. And by the morning, we were at this compassion project in partnership with the local Baptist church. And that's where I got registered as a little boy. And 4 months later, I received a letter, and please allow me to read it to you, because this defined the rest of my life, that who I am today. This letter is 19 years old and says, Hello, Jimmy. My name is Mark, and I'm 20 years old. I'm glad to have the opportunity to have a friend in Kenya. I don't know anyone outside of Canada. The reason I'm writing to you is because of a really important friend we have. You see, when I was younger, I didn't really know about Jesus, who he was. But last year, some people taught me about a great friend named Jesus. My life has changed. I really love this world and the people within it, all because of God's love for me and you and everyone. So even though you are halfway through the world, I know that God loves you and cares for you. He mapped my whole vision for life. He mapped my whole vision for life in these few words, because from then, my life is a different life. I'm at Moody Bible Institute right now, studying the Bible, to go back to Kenya and stand in the gap, in the same way Mark Hells from Canada stood in the gap for me. My mother died 6 years later after the sponsorship. It is the same time I got saved and knew what my sponsor meant when he said there's a real good friend in Jesus Christ. Right now, I'm sponsoring a kid in Haiti. She's 4 years old. That's the time that I was intervened at. And I think that's the time that I need to intervene to a child and change the whole course of their life. I am so grateful that Compassion and through the ministry that they have across the world has changed my life and who I am. I'm ready to stand in the gap for many others who just need somebody to stand in the gap for them.
Isn't that great? Here's a young man whose life was changed by the love of Christ being put in action through a young 20-year-old, and now he's standing in the gap and helping others. One question, have you ever talked to your sponsor?
No.
You have not?
No.
Well, would you like to meet him right now? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mark Hales, Jimmy's sponsor.
I'm telling you, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. We were like, oh my goodness, are you serious? And it just shows you the kind of impact you can make in somebody's life when you go long term. Over all those years, Mark, through letters and stuff, had just been supporting Jimmy, giving some money so that he'd have food to eat and get an education. And then you see the impact it made in his life. I mean, that went on, that little scene, we cut it off. It went on for like 5 minutes. He ended up on the ground. He just couldn't, it just freaked him out because he'd never met this guy, but he basically saved his life. That's what it looks like to go long term rather than short term with your one. See, here's the thing. Mark, he couldn't help every hungry child in the world, could he? He couldn't. But he could help Jimmy. He'd help Jimmy. It made a difference in his life. That conference, I signed up for a Compassion Child, sponsor a young child now in India named Shrinu. Send him gifts, Christmas presents, birthday presents. Make sure he has funding for school and has food to eat. And I hope to travel one day to India to meet him. But I'm trying to go long term with Shrinu, just like Mark went long term with Jimmy. So with your one, go long term rather than short term. Number 3 is this. Third tip is this. Go time, not just money. Go time, not just money. See, we're a very wealthy nation, aren't we? Most of us rich by the standards of this world, for sure. And so it's easy to just throw money at something. But if you really want to help somebody, if you really want to help your one, a lot of times it involves your time and walking through a process with them. You know, if anybody could throw money at something, my parents a number of years ago started a very successful business. It's a payroll company, and they could throw money at stuff if they wanted to, but they've taught my sister and I remember when we were even in high school, about the importance of going time, not just money. Even when you have money, not just going money, but going time as well. I'll give you one instance, and there are many of these, but they set a great example for my sister and I. I remember my mom and my dad both had Meals on Wheels routes. How many guys all over campus know what Meals on Wheels is? Heard of Meals on Wheels? Basically taking meals to the homebound, right? People that can't get out. And so my mom had a route, dad had a route. They could have just funded, and helped support Meals on Wheels, but they took a route. And so I remember my dad was on his route, and he met a guy. He had a severe case of MS, multiple sclerosis. And he knew the guy. It was a friend of his, not close, but from high school. And so on this route that he was on, every week he would get to see him and chat with him and visit with him, but he couldn't walk, couldn't really get out of his house, didn't have a lot of family or friends around. And so I remember in time, my dad, my mom kind of approaching our family and saying, hey, we're going to kind of adopt this guy. He didn't have anybody to spend the holidays with or anything, so we can't help, basically every sick person in Lubbock, but we can help him. And so I remember he'd come over for Christmas. We'd get him Christmas presents, and my sister would go over, this was when we were in high school, she'd go over to his house and she'd set up Christmas trees and decorate his house, and we'd have him over for Thanksgiving. And I remember my dad and I going over to get him, and it was tough getting him in a wheelchair. He was a big guy, and me and my dad, I'm puny, but he's a little stronger. But I'm on CrossFit, so it's fixing to change. And so we'd get him in a wheelchair and we'd like wheel him out to the car, right? And my dad was driving a truck at the time, so we've got to get him like from down here in the wheelchair to up here in the truck. And I remember like I'm on one side and just and my dad's on and just trying to throw him in the car. I mean, we just didn't have the lifts and all this, and so we'd go get him and then bring him to our house. He watched football games with us and all that. In time, started wanting to come to church with us. Came to church with our family. I mean, we were going long term with this guy. He came to church. I remember the day he told us that he wanted to get baptized. It was so cool, and so we called and we said, is that possible? Like, because we're going to need like 6 people or something. Can't we even get him baptized? Oh, we can get him baptized. And so I remember that day, and there was probably 4 deacons or 6. I don't know how many there were, but a bunch of them. They get up there in the baptistry and baptize him, and it was just awesome. And he ended up passing away a few years after that. But, we got to be involved not just by financially helping him some, but with our lives. We grew to love him. Adopted him basically into our family, and that was led by my parents, who could have just thrown money at it. They didn't want to throw money at it. They wanted to invest their time, and really, I think they set an example for my sister and I of when you have your one and you're, helping somebody. Go time, not just money. Don't just throw money at it. Get involved. Get to know somebody. Help them really walk through a process. So again, number 1, go deep rather than wide. Number 2, go long term rather than short term. Number 3, go time, not just money. So here's the challenge. It's a simple message today. The challenge is just this. Would you find a one or a few or a group or a class in 2012? Like, would you find somebody? Would you invest in their life? Would you really help them rather than just, giving them a handout? Some of you may already have a one, but many of you probably don't. You don't really know. You don't know if it's, a widow you need to support, or a single mom, or a classroom, or a small group here at the church. You need to pray about that. But one great way to find needs is to get involved in our life houses. You got a card when you came in, is in your chair. Would you pull this out? All of our campuses. It says Experience Community on the front. Once you know, one of the purposes of our life houses is not just a Bible study. We get together and we serve together in Jesus' name. And so each life house does a number of service projects a semester, and they're in contact with Jill and our staff, kind of figuring out where needs are. And so if you're looking for the one, you're looking for your group, you're looking for your few to invest in, why not get involved in a life house with a number of other people that are saying, we want a group too. We want a 1-2 that we can do for what we wish we could do for everyone. If you're not involved in a life house, why not today, as we close here in a minute, fill this out, and when you walk out of the campus that you're at, there should be buckets in the back that you can drop these in. We'll have a life house leader contact you, tell you about the group, and you can get involved and serve with this group. We care, though, about serving, not just in the church, one another, but also in our community. It's a great way to find your one. And think about this. Here's the principle again. Do for one what you wish you could do for everybody. Think about this. Think about this. What if everybody did that? Because we can't do for everyone, right? So what if we all did for one or 2 or a group what we wish we could do for everyone? Guess what? Wouldn't that change the world? Wouldn't that change the world? Wouldn't that feed the hungry kids that are in our country and countries around the world? Sure it would. If everybody did for one what they wished they could do for everyone. And even if nobody else joins you, it's going to change somebody's world. Change the world of the one that you're helping out. And guess what? At the end of the day, it's going to change your world too. Simple principle from here in Galatians chapter 6. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Let's pray together. Jesus, thank you so much for my friends here today. And God, I know we all are overwhelmed by the needs around us. And sometimes we get so overwhelmed we don't do anything because we're just overwhelmed. God, would you help us today to do for one or a few or a group or a class what we wish we could do for everyone. God, this year in 2012, give us all a one that we can do for what we wish we could do for everyone. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for checking out one of our messages today. If you made a decision to commit your life to Christ, I'd love to know about it. You can email me at chris@experiencelifenow.com. Also, if you're interested in taking a next step, check out our website at experiencelifenow.com and click on Next Steps. Let us know if we can ever serve you in any way, and we look forward to seeing you soon.